Hi, this is Cindy McVeigh from Crazy for Crafting, back with another video tutorial on creating watermarks. If you watched my first watermark tutorial, you know that I mentioned that there were several ways to do this, and I'm going to show you a completely different way tonight. Whereas the last one that we made was created in white, and then we dialed down the opacity and put it on top of our photograph, we're actually going to use the brush tool to create our own brush, and then we're going to use that to create a watermark that actually looks like it's embossed into the photograph. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I'm going to do is create a new blank file, and I'm not going to name it because we're going to name that later when we define it as a brush. My width is set at 600, height at 500, resolution at 250, and the width and height are not absolute. You can play around with that. You might find that you need less or more, but it's a good starting point. Set your color at RGB color, and most importantly, make sure your background is set at transparent. Click on OK, and that's our blank transparent canvas, which is indicated by the white and gray checkerboard pattern. Then we want to go down to our color picker here down in the left hand bottom corner, and if you have colors there rather than your black and white, particularly if you don't have the white, click here on the little tiny version of it, and that brings back your default colors, which are black and white, and then this arrow will toggle back and forth, so just toggle that to make sure the black is on top. And then you're ready to go to your text tool, and when you do that, your text tools will come up on your board up here. I'm sorry, on your bar up here, and it is set on script MT bold because I used it last time, and that's actually what I'm going to use this time. And 24 points font size. We'll go ahead and try that and see how that looks. Looks like it's going to be about right. This is where I'm creating a signature, and clearly it's not my real signature, but it's going to serve as my digital signature. And you might want to pick a font that kind of expresses your personality, that's identifiable when somebody looks at your watermark and they recognize it as yours. So now I've got my name in there, and I'm not going to change that to bold because that's a pretty bold font as it is. So I'm going to just set that here. I'm going to click on another part of the canvas, double click on it, and when you do that, whoops, let's go back. Oh, we need to go back to our text tool. No wonder it didn't work. And you'll see your cursor here. And then go down to another part of your canvas, and your cursor will appear. And you'll notice that you get the red and green symbols up here when you do that, which indicates that you're starting another set of text. It's not part of this one. So now we want to go back, and we want to choose a much simpler font, and I'm going to use Arial. It's a real good one for the copyright information because it's a simple block print that's easy to read, particularly once it's embossed into a photograph. We need it to be pretty simple. And let's try 12 point and see if that works. So I'm going to type copyright, and then I'm going to insert my copyright symbol by pressing the Alt key, and while I'm holding that down, I type 0169, release the Alt key, and it puts the copyright in. Now, you do need to note that this has to be done on the keypad to the right of your keyboard. It will not work with the keys across the top. So now we're going to put in our date, and then I'm going to type my name, and I'm going to click the check mark, bring that over and see how that looks. That's a little large, so I'm going to go back to the text tool, highlight it, and let's try 10. And I like that much better. And then I'm going to go down, and as I told you before, I like to put my blog address in here because that way if somebody finds my pictures somewhere else, they can find their way back to my blog where the original is, and also to ask me questions. So that completes that portion of it, and we'll just move that around to where we like it. Now, if we come over here and click on our layers, we'll see that we actually have two layers. One with my name in the script, and one with the actual copyright information. For this technique, we want to merge those two layers. So we're going to click on the first one, hold down the shift, click on the bottom one, and then we're going to go to layer and merge layers. And now if you look over here in the layers palette, you'll see that it's combined it into one layer. And now I can come over here and this moves around as one image. So basically that's what our brush is going to look like. Now we just need to tell Photoshop to save that as a brush. So in order to do that, we're going to come over here in our tools and choose the magic wand, and when you come back over here into your canvas, you'll see that it actually looks like a little magic wand, kind of looks like a Tinkerbell wand. And we want to select all the parts of this that we want to make into our brush, which in this case is everything that we typed. So what we want to do is we want to come up to the top and look at these three check boxes. You'll notice that anti-alias and sample all layers are already checked. Those are not terribly important. The sample all layers, we're only using one layer, so it doesn't really matter. But the one that's really important is this contiguous button. If we check that, I want you to see what happens. Let's go down here and click on the M, and you see how it puts the little, what they call ants, or the scrolling marquee around the M and the C. That's because those are contiguous, they're touching, and it didn't choose anything that's not touching. If I were to go over to the V and choose that, it's going to choose only the V. And we want to choose everything, so we want to uncheck the contiguous, and now when we come back in and click on something, it's going to choose everything that is that same color. So it chose everything that we typed in the black. And now that we have all of our information selected, we want to go to Edit, Define Brush from Selection. We click on that and we get this dialog box, and you'll see our brush here in a little thumbnail. Even though it's a little bit squished, it shows all of our information there in a thumbnail. And we can now name it, and I'm just going to name it Cindy. And then we can use our Alt 0169 and put the copyright right in the name of the brush. So I'm just going to do that. Click OK. And now if you come over here and click on your brush tool and go up here to your drop down brush styles, you'll see if you go all the way to the very bottom, there's our brush that we just created. So now that we know it's there, we want to go back to our image and we want to get rid of all of this that we put in there. We don't need it anymore the way that we had to save it before as an image, because we've already defined it as a brush and it is saved that way. So we want to go back to our blank canvas, and I could do that by coming up here and clicking to undo and going back several times, and actually it's going to be many times until I get back to where I was. But the easiest way to do it, and this is a cool little trick, is to go to it's Window, Undo History, and then you're going to see that you get a whole menu of all the steps that we took from the start to the finish. And this is where we want to go. We want to go all the way back to the start. If we were to click here, it's going to go back to that step. But if we click here, it takes us all the way back to our blank canvas, which is just what we want. So let's get rid of the Undo History dialog box. We now have our blank canvas to start with. And now we want to bring our picture in and stamp it with our brush.